I get off at my regular job. So here, this window, I'm getting a lot of glare here. So right now I'm headed out to tune my CB antenna. I went to a 100-mile yard sale and ended up picking up an older K40. Oh, little magnet mount's not doing so well on the old gravel. I picked up a K40 a few months back at a yard sale for $5, and I put it on. I haven't tuned it into anything yet, so I'm getting ready to go out here in the midst of a bunch of fields and gonna tune this antenna. And while I'm out there, I'm gonna make a video on. Boy, this gravel's rough. I'm gonna make a video on how I converted this Jeep from a two-wheel drive to a four-wheel drive. I've had several questions and comments on my Jeep Cherokee, what to look for before you buy a Jeep Cherokee video, on converting this thing from two-wheel drive to four-wheel drive. It's not complicated. That's what this video is going to be about. And it's going to be just, I've obviously already done it, and I don't have another one that I'm doing it to right now. So I'm just going to kind of highlight the points, what I did and what I needed from the donor Jeep. You will need a donor Jeep, a four-wheel drive, in order to convert one. And if you can find one with a blown-up engine, that's going to be your cheapest option. If you go to a junkyard and buy the parts, it's going to cost you a lot more than if you can just get on Craigslist. Jesus Christ! I need to grade this road. If you go on Craigslist and find you one with a blown-up engine or no title, it's going to be a lot cheaper than going to a junkyard and finding the parts, each individual part. Oh, excuse me. So anyway, I'm going to get out here and I will start the video again whenever I get ready to kind of go over what I did. Go on YouTube, I'm back. So just got done in tuning my CB antenna. I'm modulating on 1.2 SWR on 40 and on 1 as well. Didn't even have to really do anything to the antenna. When I first put it on, I put it on the rear bumper, and I wasn't able to get very good, I don't want to say reception. I wasn't able to talk very far. It was kind of had interference with it, but it was right by the body. So the body was here, the antenna's here, and it's hitting the body. Moved it up to the roof rack, and I'm getting a perfect SWR reading on it now. So hopefully that's going to take care of the issue. What I wanted to do now, I've had several questions from several people about converting this Jeep from two-wheel drive to four-wheel drive. And so I'm going to go over kind of what I did to do that. Well, the sun's crazy. What I'm going to do is switch the camera right now. All right, everybody. I want to go over real quickly. Obviously, I've already converted this thing from two-wheel drive to four-wheel drive, but I've had questions about it, so I want to go over kind of I know it can be intimidating to do it for the first time, so I want to go over kind of what I needed from the donor Jeep. I would recommend, again, getting a donor Jeep. It's going to make this process a lot easier and probably a lot cheaper. So first thing, starting off inside here, on the two-wheel drive, there's just a cover, just a flat cover over this. You pull that cover off, and you'll need the four-wheel drive, the transfer case cover. You'll have to take your center console all the way out because there is a metal plate under here on the floor covering the hole. So if you're having to get piece by piece or you're doing this a little bit at a time, you'll need, again, this top cover. And you'll need to take the cover off under that. And also, another thing that I didn't think about at the time, you will need your wiring harness from under here for the lights. It plugs in and unplugs, but the two-wheel drive does not have the light that goes under here to light up your transfer case panel. There's already a hole in the carpet and everything for all that to go through, so you don't have to worry about that. Obviously, you're going to need your front four-wheel drive axle and drive shaft. I mean, that's kind of a given. Underneath here, oh, I'm on a gravel road, so underneath here, your transfer case, you can see, mounts to the back. The cross member mounts up the same way. You don't need the cross member. So you'll need your transfer case. You'll need your rear drive shaft out of a four-wheel drive because it's shorter than the two-wheel drive. So rear drive shaft, transfer case. You don't need to change anything else out. If I can get up under here. Right up there, if you can see it. All that stuff in the middle of the screen is the transfer case linkage stuff that mounts to the body right there. All those holes and everything are there already. You need all this assembly right here, and that's how your transfer case linkage goes up into the cab. That's it. That's all you need to do the four-wheel drive swap. The transfer case, the linkage with the handle that goes up into the inside of the Jeep, front axle, both front and rear drive shafts. All the steering stuff is the same, so you can just leave all the steering stuff mounted to the front axle. Everything else is swappable. I mean, everything else is the same. So, it's not that hard to do. What I would recommend, things that I did, your U-joints, go ahead and replace your U-joints on both your drive shafts while you've got everything apart. And your front steering stuff, go ahead and replace everything. Well, you don't need to replace the metal parts, but go ahead and replace your bushings and everything under here. All your bushings and all that stuff under there, go ahead and replace that while you got it apart, because you're going to have everything out and easily accessible anyway, so just go ahead and do that. Also, I would recommend replacing your rubber mounts for your transmission while you've got it all out. Tools that you will need to do this. If you don't have a shop with a lift, I did this one in a shop with a lift, which made it a lot easier. Let me get up in the Jeep. I'll be right back. So again, back to tools that you need to do this job. If you don't have a shop with a lift, I did mine in a shop with a 2-pillar lift. You'll need jack stands, jacks. I would say a minimum of 4 jack stands and a minimum of 2 jacks, floor jacks. Not the bottle jacks that you use on the side of the road. I'm talking an actual slide under floor jack. Because what you're going to have to do, if you do different sections at a time, you get under there, you put a jack under your transmission, you jack your transmission up, you unbolt your cross member, unbolt the cross member from the Jeep, and unbolt it from the transmission. Drop your engine and transmission down at the back. While you've got it jacked up, go ahead and take your drive shaft out, drop it down, and then unbolt your transmission from the engine. That's going to be hard. You're going to need extensions, long extensions. Unbolt your transmission from your engine, pull it out carefully. I would recommend having someone to help you with this process. If you don't have a lift and a transmission jack, and you're doing it on the ground, get someone to help you. That transmission is no joke. It's heavy. Once you get that transmission out, you're ready to put in your transmission transfer case. So go ahead and bolt it up. I've found with mine, I put an engine in here, so I left the transmission attached to the engine, put it all in, and then put the transfer case on. With yours, it may be easier for you to take the transfer case off the transmission, and then put the transmission on, and then put the transfer case on. Again, that's where the jacks and the jack stands come into play. To do that, I'm sorry that I've already done mine. I can't go through it step by step with you and show you. But anybody who's a little mechanically inclined, you can figure that out. Once you get your transmission transfer case in there, put your cross member back up, bolt it up, and your driveline part is ready. Again, you take your center console out here, take the panel, the covers off, put your transfer case linkage, your shifter, up through the bottom, bolt it up, hook all your linkages up. And actually, I skipped a step. You want to do that before you bolt everything up to the transmission cross member, because you may have to go up and down and make room. Phone call there from my mom. Where was I? Oh, yeah. What I had to do with mine to get all my transfer case linkage and everything hooked up is I had to have the old man push the transfer case off to the passenger side. I got in there, I hooked everything up, we pushed it back, lined everything up, jacked it up, bolted it up. With your front end, this is really a lift would help. You can do it without a lift, but a lift would help. On it, you're going to need to jack up the whole front end and use your jack stands to hold it up while you take your front axle out. Unbolting your upper and lower control arms from your front axle and unbolting all your steering components from the Jeep. You can unbolt your steering components from the axle and put the new axle in and hook everything back up. It's however you want to do it. What I did is I left everything attached to the front, to the axle, and I just left all the steering on the axle and moved it over and hooked it all back up. Once you get all that hooked back up, I would recommend going to O'Reilly's for getting a coil spring compressor. There are things that go on the coil springs, and you screw them down and they compress the coil springs, and then you put the coil springs back in there and release them. That is going to be a must-have, or you're going to have a hard time getting those coil springs back in. Other than that, I mean, that's it, folks. Transmission transfer case, the linkages for the transfer case, and then your front axle and hooking it all back up. And then you put your drive shaft in and go. That's it. If you have any questions or you get into it and you are unsure about something, holler at me and I'll answer it the best I can. But that's the steps that I took, and it was pretty easy to do. I had help. My dad helped me, another friend helped me, and I had some students in the auto technology class helping me while I did it, and so I had a lot of hands, and I would not recommend doing it by yourself unless you're an experienced mechanic with the proper tools and equipment. If you're doing this in your backyard with jack stands and jacks, have some buddies with you and be super careful. Anything could go wrong, and jacks and jack stands can fall. Be super careful when you do it if you're not using a proper lift and proper transmission jacks and that kind of stuff. And even if you are, be careful. But for sure, if you're doing it in the backyard with kind of getting by, be super careful doing it. Yeah, so basically, don't be afraid to buy a two-wheel drive Jeep and convert it. This Jeep that I'm driving right now had zero rust on it, none at all. That's why I bought it. It had no engine, but had a good title. And I happened to have an older four-wheel drive Jeep with no title that run and drive that was four-wheel drive. And I got this Jeep for $300 with no engine and a good title. And then I got the other Jeep for $400 with no title and running and driving. So for less than $1,000, I was able to build a four-wheel drive Jeep. Now, the lift and tires, that's, the $1,200-$1,500 for the lift and tires that I put on here. But basically, for less than $2,000, I built a 01 four-wheel drive Jeep. And again, I had a lot of help doing it. I did the whole job in about 10 or 12 days with several people's help to get it done. And it wasn't a big deal. Again, I had the proper tools and stuff to do that. If you're doing this with jack stands and jacks, I mean, it's probably going to take you longer depending on how much help you have and how much time you have and all that. I was basically working on this thing for 8 or 10 hours a day for 12 days with a bunch of help. But we got it done, and it's not something to be afraid of. Around here, we can't find four-wheel drive Jeeps that aren't really rusty. And you can find two-wheel drive Jeeps that aren't rusty because they weren't abused as much. So wherever that's in the Midwest. Your mileage may differ where you're at. I talked to a guy the other day in California that found a Jeep, four-wheel drive Jeep with, maybe it's a two-wheel drive, with 46,000 miles on it for about $3,800, and it's a dream to find one around here with less than 200,000 miles. But anywho, that's my video on how to do two-wheel drive to four-wheel drive conversion. If ever I get the chance to do another one, I will video document the entire process. With this one, I was in a hurry to get this one done because I needed the vehicle. I needed a vehicle to drive. And so it was kind of a whirlwind, do it all, get it done. And then I couldn't videotape a lot of it that I had students help with because they are high school students. And I can't videotape them and put it online. So anyway, if you have any questions, feel free to comment or email me at theboothillkid@gmail.com. I'll be happy to answer any questions I can. I'm not a professional mechanic by any means. I'm barely a shade tree mechanic. I had a lot of help and a lot of knowledgeable people to ask questions to. An actual mechanic that answered a lot of my questions and helped me figure a lot of the stuff out. Even while he was sick, so I've got to thank him for that, and I have before. But he, if I had a question about something, I could ask him, and he answered it and gave me ideas on what to do to get around it. So, and he still does. Again, I'm not a professional mechanic. These are the steps that I took to get there, and again, it's not that bad to do. So, anyway, thank y'all for watching. Have a good one.